Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, where we keep you updated with all that is happening on the paper. We will recall that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was in Netherlands, where he had to talk about trading and other things that concern making Nigeria a better place. And from there, he actually went straight to Saudi Arabia, where the World Economic Forum is holding, where we saw various presidents are present there to see how they can discuss concerning the economy of Africa. I am Sada Elisha Dasho. Remember, you can join us live on Facebook and on YouTube. Drop your comment, your views on any of the story we will be looking at this morning. And I'll bring the program alongside Rachel Tazi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Great. How was weekend?
It was fine. How was yours?
All right. It was great. Full of some house chores, but then it was beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We should go straight into the papers, starting with the Daily Independent newspaper.
The big story on the paper: Nigeria will have gone bankrupt without subsidy cut. A statement from President Tinubu says government prepared for turbulence of subsidy cut and naira float. Secure $600 million seaport infrastructure deal with Samsung. You can start with the details on the front page. Senate worried over naira depreciation, insists stakeholders must come together to rescue currency. APC kicks as PDP clears all 33 council seats in Oyo local government poll. State police will worsen security situation, coming from Suswam. You can find details on page 6. Onondo Guba Ayedatiwa supporter shot dead by unknown gunmen. 19 burned to death in Kogi auto crash. Shareholders approve Nigerian brewery 600 billion naira capital raising plan. Details can be found on page 7. On Rivers crisis, local government chairman asks court to order state IGP orders to secure them. And at the downside of the paper, Ganduje's Probe Kano Commission holds inaugural sitting today. Details can be found on page 6. We have two picture story, that of the court-ordered meeting of the shareholders of Zenith Bank PLC and that of the World Economic Forum, where we can see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu together with the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On Blueprint newspaper, Zenith Bank shareholders approve holdco structure, poses for growth. You can find details of that on page 23. Zulum approves appointment of 15 persons with disability. You can find that news in the paper. APCON to harmonize retail end of FX market for BDCs. And on sport, we have sport minister putting pressure on the NFF to appoint Amoike. You can find detail of that story on page 32. The big story for the paper said business activity suffer as Nigerians lament biting fuel scarcity. Queues return to Lagos, Abuja, Kwara commodities sell for between 600 naira and 1,000 naira to a litre. Syrup sue NNPCL over missing $2.04 billion and 164 billion naira revenues. We hope that the NNPCL will do something concerning even the marketers, because, I mean, from last week, we saw the queues coming up. In fact, not just last week, I think 2 weeks now, we've been seeing that there seems to be scarcity of the fuel. And I remember last week, NNPCL said people, there was no need for panic buying, that the reason why we were not having the fuel was because of logistics, which has been rectified. But shockingly, we are still having the queues. Even here in the Plateau State, the queues are there. We have certain places you need to see the long queue. And we've seen that. I think this is where I mostly talk about the issue when we have black marketers having access to it more. And I can only believe that 1,000 naira to a litre can only be sold by black marketers. Yeah. Of course, you can't go to any of the black market filling station. Mostly those who stay on the roadside and all of that. And it's a matter of time we'll see them coming again. So I'm hoping that NNPCL will do something, because we are seeing that businesses are really, really suffering. Last week we saw PZ leaving. That's an international company that will be leaving soon. So we need to do something. I keep talking about the fact that if we want to encourage small, medium enterprises, we need to do something concerning constant power. Because, Rachel, throughout the weekend, I don't know if you enjoyed lighting your side. There was no power at my area. So I was wondering what's happening. And so imagine a business at that kind of area. And then here we're saying, well, it's not even available for you to be able to go get it and even run your small business. For example, if you're a hairdresser. So I am hoping that the government will truly look into this issue, because the issue of fuel is becoming, I really do not understand, Rachel. I mean, it was expected that since the government have removed the subsidy, it should be available. If you're making it expensive, then make it available.
Yeah.
But it's expensive, it's not available. So what on earth did you expect the common man to do? How do you expect small businesses to survive? We're looking at the inflation, Rachel, with the way things are going. I just don't want to imagine what the inflation for April would look like, because we saw what it was in March.
Yeah.
So for April, I really do not. So I'm hoping, honestly, let NNPCL do something. Let the fuel be available. Please, let it be available. And I think I'm speaking the minds of Nigerians out there, because they really need the government to do something about it.
Concerning fuel scarcity at the moment, I think we are at an era right now where NNPCL is not one of that transparent body in the country. Let me put it like that. There's a lot of hidden things, I believe. If it's logistics and it has been solved, then we should be able to see fuel in the filling stations and all of that. But if there isn't, then it means the problem is bigger than what you actually said it is. We know what marketers keep saying. The voices of marketers is different from what NNPCL is saying. Despite the assurance, left, right, center, we are not seeing any better result when it comes to fuel availability, price in the market as it is now. Whether we like it or not, fuel pump price keeps increasing gradually, silently. 10 naira, 20 naira difference, 15 naira difference, depending on where it is. It's 700. We're seeing some places are having it 800. And when there's scarcity, it will shock you slightly that it might not even be the roadside. It might even be the fuel stations, depending on the area and the availability. We know there's hoarding. It might still be the fuel station hiking their prices so that they would be able to maximize profit, because we know this is the challenge I believe that the marketers are having, especially when they talk about what the landing price is and what NNPCL is saying. So until we, I believe that NNPCL have so much information for some reason that they are not letting it out for Nigerians. They are protecting one thing or another. We know that for sure. But until then, I think we'll just keep seeing these, inconsistencies to what the fuel situation of the country will be as it is now. But then let them do. I just keep saying whatever it takes. Let us have this petrol available, and then the price, because either way, if there's scarcity, no matter the promise you have given Nigerians, that fuel pump price will not be above a certain level, as long as there's scarcity, you can't keep to your promise, because it gives room for exploitation. And once there's scarcity, automatically we know how economy works. It's not only in our economy, but once there's scarcity, whatever kind of scarcity, man-made, real scarcity and all of that, there is going to be a price hike, and then automatically your promise of fuel pump price won't be above a certain amount would definitely not be fulfilled, and all of that, and the hardship continues. Despite us seeing the statement from President Tinubu concerning the cut and what it has been able to do for us, we are still waiting for bigger results compared to what we are seeing right now, because we are in the position where it is that trillions have been saved as regarding to removal of fuel subsidy. So we are waiting to see. It's not just the word of mouth that it has been able to save us this, and that. We want to see results, and that is what is lacking now when it comes to this whole credibility of the fuel subsidy removal. So we just have to wait and see what it means for Nigeria.
Our fingers are crossed, Richard. Let's see what the government will do about that. Still on Blueprint newspaper, Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government begins property demolition, assures early compensation. More detail found in the paper. Tinubu tax global community on poverty in Africa's Sahara region, secures $600 million seaport investment with Danish giant Mola Marit. You can find detail of that on page 6. 3 Yoruba nation agitators attack OYSIEC officials arrested in Aita. You can find that on page 9. Dangote Clicker cement depot increases by 87.2%. 19 killed in Okene Lokoja highway auto crash. And I hope something will be done about the issue of the road, our drivers, and all of that, because this is not the first time we're having an auto crash on that road. You can find detail of that on page 7. EFCC Chair appoint Ezekwe as COS names 14 new zonal directors. More detail on page 13. We have the picture story during the court order meeting of the stakeholders of Zenith Bank PLC. You can grab the paper and read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On leadership, CBN drops import duty forex rate to 1,164.84 kobo to a dollar. Kano begins probe of Ganduje today. We have a fact checked. What did the EFCC chairman say about Yahaya Bello? In trending, federal government plans relocation of Suleja Medium Prison. You can find details on page 2. Recapitalization, banking stocks declined by 2.069 trillion naira in 16 days as banks have 24 hours to submit recapitalization plans and strategies. Details can be found on page 7. Fuel subsidy removal necessary for Nigeria's economy, statement from President Tinubu. The big story on the paper calls for new constitution. National Assembly turns a deaf ear, proceeds with amendment. Rep says their calls for anarchy chaos received 13,500 memoranda and reforms will be taken seriously. Coming from Senate, you can find details on page 4. 19 died, 2 rescued in Okene auto crash. This is a report from the FRSC. Prices of foodstuff drop in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. Bandits loot abandoned Niger villages. You can find details on page 8. Gunmen kill Ayedatiwa's campaign coordinator in Ondo. You can find details on page 29. That's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Sanwo-Olu sacked 425 LWC redundant officials. You can find detail of that on page 3. Ondo Guba Ayedatiwa campaign coordinator killed by policemen. And then looking at the Edo Guba, Y Oriba, Shaibu, Ajotu, and others gunning up against Obaseki. You can find detail, and we have a writer following that story on that as well. Zenith Bank shareholders approve transition to whole co-structure. And we also have the big story here. Petrol scarcity will linger 2 more weeks, coming from Ipman. As scarcity spread nationwide, long queues emerges at filling station. Hawkers sell petrol at 1,000 naira per liter. Commuters stranded at motor parks. We have adequate stock coming from the NNPC, and I wonder, if you have adequate stock, why are we having scarcity? And transport operators are saying scarcity is actually hurting businesses. More detail of that can be found on page 5. Why Naira depreciated by 23% in 4 days? Currency dealers and analysts are saying. Well, we can look at the writer that say banks, end users, FX from parallel market to the official market, and then BDC side intervention from the CBN. Naira appreciate as CBN expertise intervention and intensify reinforcement. You can find detail of that in the paper. We remove fuel subsidy to avoid bankruptcy, coming from the President Tinubu. And on the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government begins enforcement of right of way. More detail on page 9. We have the picture story, Tinubu and other world leaders at the World Economic Forum in Saudi Arabia, where we can see the president of Rwanda. We also see our own president and many other presidents during that economic forum yesterday. And that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Zenith Bank shareholders approve holdco structure. You can find details on page 5. Coming from the defense headquarters, Prince Harry, wife to meet military personnel on visit to Nigeria. Details can be found on page 10. The big story, Tinubu at WEF says subsidy removal, forex reform save Nigeria from bankruptcy. The writer saying meet Microsoft founder Bill Gates, chairman of AP Moller Max Ogla, and CEO of Samsung Hong Nankong, and others secure $600 million Danish investment to expand Nigeria's existing seaports. And also the Zenith Bank court-ordered extraordinary general meeting is the picture story on the paper, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On Dailies newspaper, Southeast businessmen tax governors on rail and security and others. Fuel queue spread, commuters grown. That's a big story where we are seeing transport fare have actually soared. So before you actually take any commercial vehicle, do well to ask the driver how much is the transport so you don't end up getting into a fight with all of these transporters. More detail found on page 2. Mole's betrayers destroy PDP, coming from Subwan. He said, explained reason the party derailed after 16 years in power. American school confirmed return of Yahya Bello's child advanced school fees. More detail of that can be found on page 27. Reps proposed 330-day trial limit for civil and criminal cases. These courts may post laws as alternative power from Storm Estate and Household amidst depletion of earning over tariff hike. More detail of that can be found on page 20. Enugu community conduct mass burial of 8 victims of communal clashes. Black Sunday as 19 die in Kogi Road mishap. Detail found on page 5. Reps will engage traditional rulers on constitutional review, coming from Benjamin Kalu. Wike seek church prayer for Tinubu to fulfill campaign promises. More detail found on page 28. Well, we hope prayer without work will not actually work. So we hope as the churches are praying, we also see our leaders playing their own role as well. Again, Tinubu explained fuel subsidy removal, insists action was necessary for Nigeria not to go bankrupt. Campaign of Kalum being sponsored against Power Minister, coming from the CSO. More detail found on page 25, and that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, Shetima urges political leaders to project Nigeria's cultural diversity. The big story, why political godfathers, godsons disagree, coming from Senator Suswam, says Mole's betrayers destroying PDP. Tinubu calls for inclusiveness in addressing global challenges. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 2. We have a picture story. Operatives of Rapid Response Squad led officials of Agege Local Government Council to serve removal notice on kiosk owners and shanty dwellers in Agege as part of measures to address security challenges in Agege. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, FX rate harmonization, CBN abandons unification policy, reintroduces discriminatory rates, where we're seeing custom rate for duty clearance is 1,164 to $1, and then the Bureau de change is at 1,021 naira to $1. The Nigeria autonomous foreign exchange market is at 1,339 naira 23 kobo to $1. More detail of that can be found in the paper. Investors of 15 listed firms to fulfill 2023 dividend. Presidential fleet gulps $8 million in 2 years amid safety concern. And here we are also seeing mixed reaction trail UK Rwanda asylum operation. Detail found on page 6. The misguided inversion of Oyo State Assembly matters arising. It's an editorial you can find on page 16. Lamido slammed northern governors over security meeting in the U.S. 2 notorious drug kingpins back live jail for cocaine trafficking. PDP divided as Oribi group rejected Ogudalu. You can find detail of that on page 8. APC kicks as PDP wins all seats in Oyo local government polls. Detail found also on page 7. We have a picture story. You can do well to get the paper in more detail of what that story is all about, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On New Telegraph, the big story, World Economic Forum, fuel subsidy removal saved Nigeria from bankruptcy. Statement from Tinubu secures $600 million investment in port infrastructure from Marx. Market Nigeria's investment potential to tech, to Gates and Samsung. You can find details on page 25 and 28. At the top of the paper, a report, 10 bank personal expenses rise by 45.8% to 871.56 billion naira. Poor certification, Nigerian seafarers lose out in new global minimum wage. You can find details on page 17 and 18. Senate expresses concern as Naira depreciates again. Coming from the defense headquarters, Prince Harry and wife to visit Nigeria next month. 2024 UTME candidates parents load exam speed and innovations. More details can be found on page 4 and 5. Nigeria's airline domestic market strongest in Africa. You can find details of this report on page 3. On fuel scarcity, NNPC Limited has started loading discharging products coming from Ibman. We have ex-Irish mayor, greedy politicians won't allow Nigeria go back to, I can't see that clearly on the paper, exactly parliamentary government. You can find details on page 27. Tinubu wife reps caucus mourn victims of Rivers tanker fire. You can find details on page 227 and 29. Still on New Telegraph, mass resignation. PDP will resist APC's plot to turn Nigeria into one-party state, coming from the party's Board of Trustee chairman. State police will curb rising security challenges coming from lawyers as insecurity rekindles clamor for multi-layered policing system. At the downside of the paper, coming from cardiologists, climbing stairs promotes longer life. Details can be found on page 27, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Well, I hope we all take that study seriously, Rachel, especially because of the way we consume a lot of fatty things.
Yes.
We need to burn those fats, so let's make it, a duty to use the staircases for people like me that are afraid of heights. We just need to learn. But I'm actually interested in what this ex-Irish mayor is saying concerning grading politicians not allowing Nigeria to go back to parliamentary government. And I remember you and I discussed the issue of the parliamentary government where we saw it was coming from the House of Reps. They said, with the way our presidential system of government is expensive, it has promoted corruption, and we need to go back to the parliamentary system of government where we have a prime minister, and then we also have, so that you can get check and balance and all of that. And I remember saying, regardless of what system of government we eventually abide, even though I know this will help, but it's all about the individuals that will actually define whether they want to be checked. Because even as it is presently, we can still have our president be checked. Why do we have the senators? They're not just there to sleep and read newspaper and ask for their sitting allowances and all of that. They are beyond that, but over the years we've seen them not even do what they are supposed to do. They forget that they are another arm of the government that is supposed to check the executive. Every of these arms are supposed to be checked, but we've not been seeing that happening. So no wonder we'll be hearing the mayor saying that, you know what, the reason why some of these politicians do not want is because of corruption. And that is to say, it's not just here. The world is watching, and they're actually seeing. So I'm hoping, Rachel, that we can prove the world wrong. Regardless of whether we choose to go to the parliamentary system of government or not. But then we should just make ourselves accountable that you can be checked. Whatever you're doing, the rule of law will take its course, whoever it is. That is the only way we see that other people outside Nigeria will be able to say, you know what, Nigerians are ready to actually do leadership the way it's expected of them. So we keep our fingers crossed and let us see how this whole thing will turn out to be eventually.
Just as you said, we've talked extensively about it concerning the whole parliamentary system. We did the comparison, the pros, the cons, and of course that of the parliamentary system when it comes to the importance, the advantages and its merit, of course, outweighs, overshine, shines out when it comes to the system of government we are practicing as it is now. However, either way, leadership is what matters, because we can still succeed with the system of government that we're having at the moment, because we are having other countries that are going through with what we are doing as it is now, and they are succeeding. So you can't help but wonder. We talked about that in many other things, be it democracy. We've talked about that over and over, and we've said, no, that is not the problem, because others are practicing what we are and they're getting results. So how can we sit down and say that that is the problem when others are using this same thing and then are finding it easy? Just as you said, the president can be someone. We saw the whole Yahaya Bello saga the last week, for example. And I said it's corruption that is making us not to call these people in office, because immunity doesn't say steal the money and won't talk to you. The moment a mass withdrawal from the coffers of the government was taken out, and you know it was not for a government project, there was supposed to be an alarm. Reason, but we keep quiet and we allow certain things. And then the question is it our leadership or is it the system of leadership? Of course it's not. It's what we allow, because there is no place in our law, in our bylaws, in our books that says this certain thing is allowed or not. We are the ones who allow it, and then we abuse certain privileges and all of that. So either way, yes, of course, our corrupt minds, our greed, and all of that will not allow us to go back to a parliamentary system of government. But either way, we can still succeed if we decide to be transparent, if we decide to check, if we decide to be open, if we decide to call. You can't say you can't call the president. You have our Senate can do that, the executives can do that and say, we are not understanding what you're doing. But then there's loyalty. There's God for that reason we're seeing that, and God, son who puts me there, you're loyal to that person. Even if Nigeria is sinking, you don't care, and all of that. So, I mean, it's our mindset. That's where the shift needs to be. It's in leadership. We need to start having selfless leaders, and until then, even if we decide to go for the parliamentary system, with our mindset and how we see politics and running the government, as long as we see it as just go and eat your national cake, I think corruption will still be there. And even in a more dangerous way, looking at how the parliamentary system works.
Of course, Richard. So we'll keep our finger. Let's see how this whole thing will turn out to be. Well, before we move to the next paper, we will love to take a break at this moment. Quite a lot. You can talk about the World Economic Forum, where we're seeing there have been deliberation, leaders presenting what needs to be done in their own country as well as in the continent. So when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories, what is happening at the World Economic Forum, as well as locally here, the issue of the fuel being scarce, where we can say that the queues have returned, and IPMAN is saying it will take about 2 weeks for fuel to be adequately available in almost every part. So we keep our fingers crossed, and we hope that they will keep to their own part of the bargain by making it available. I still have Rachel Tanzer in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, starting with a big story. Petrol scarcity spread to Lagos, Oyo, Ondo, Osun, Edo, and others. Marketers resume product lifting from depots. NNPCL is saying there is sufficient stock, so you can read more detail of that in the paper. Electricity crisis, Lagos, Edo, Oyo await NERC note. Enugu, Ekiti, Ondo blaze the trail, detail found on page 7. Bandit terrorists kill 90 policemen in 1 year. How to prevent losing men by Okiro. You can find detail of that on page 29. How Port's single window policy will boost the economy, detail found in the paper. PDP wins all 33 council seats in Oyo State, and they are saying why they won. You can read the why on page 5. Also still on the paper, how banks plan to meet recapitalization condition. CBN deadline ends tomorrow. More detail found inside the paper. Danish firm Merckx to invest $600 million in Apapa Port and others. Downside of the paper, 19 die in Okeni, Lokoja highway crash, 120 vehicles burned in Rivers tanker fire, detail found on page 6. And that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Senate expresses concern over Naira depreciation, blames fiscal deficits, fluctuation in crude oil prices. Naira weakens under renewed attack by crypto traders despite $17.93 billion market turnover. You can find details on page 6. Why we ended petrol subsidy, coming from President Tinubu. Ganduje's probe commission of inquiry holds inaugural session today. National Assembly Constitution Review Committee to meet Tinubu. PDP declared winner of Oyo local government polls. Gunmen kill Aiyedatiwa's campaign coordinator. Details can be found on page 28. Accident claims 19 lives in Okene Lokoja Highway. On Coastal Road, affected property owners seek adequate compensation as federal government begins demolition. We will begin payment from Wednesday, coming from minister, and I hope that they do receive the payment before the demolition starts, because usually when the government starts the demolition and you're yet to receive a compensation, we just have property owners fighting years later for compensation and they never get anything. So I just hope that the government of the day is fair to these people and they do get this compensation before the demolition. Is not we will begin on Wednesday, start giving them before you start the demolition, so that these people will not be stranded. We have an assurance coming from the minister, and we are waiting Wednesday to see if they start disbursing this compensation. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On First News newspaper, JAM may release 2024 UTME results today. So for those who wrote the exam a week ago, you can look forward to seeing whether the result will be displayed on the portal today. CSMC late Baba Oladure Abidoye goes home in blaze of glory, buried with fanfare in Church International Headquarters. More detail of that can be found in the paper. Alleged missing $2.04 billion, 164 billion naira oil revenue. Serap drag NNPCL to court. Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government begins property demolition. Allies fears detail found in the paper. Police nab teenage twin brothers for burgling in Ekiti. You can find detail in the paper. ECOWAS deploy 40 observers to monitor Togo elections, and we hope that the election will be successful. And the big story, for subsidy removal necessary to save Nigeria from bankruptcy, coming from the President Tinubu. PDP wins all 33 Oyo local government chairman seat as APC kick and reject the result. And Rivers disaster, Governors Forum seeks safer transportation of petroleum products. And on the tragedy that happened, 19 roasted alive in Kogi auto crash Inferno. Gunmen killed Governor Aiyedatiwa World Campaign Coordinator as campaign group laments key members' murder, express worry. Cocaine trafficking court sentences 2 drug kingpin to life imprisonment as NDLEA intercept Italian born illicit consignment, more detail in the paper. And we have a picture story here which you can do well to see and read more detail inside the paper, and that's all the First News newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Dangote cement export of clinker cement increased by 87.2%. Sule Lamido lambasts northern governors over U.S. trip on tackling insecurity. Gas tanker explodes in Abeokuta, 1 dead. Shareholders give nod for Zenith restructuring to hold co. You can find details on page 6. The big story, fuel subsidy removal. We save Nigeria from bankruptcy. A statement from President Tinubu. And the last story on the paper, man accused of stealing cement jumps into lagoon, drowns while trying to evade arrest. Details can be found on page 23, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Matrix newspaper, Zenith Bank shareholders embrace holdco structure. Detail found in the paper. Arsenal survived Tottenham, scars to win North London derby. You can find that for sport lovers on page 16. Tinubu FDI drives yield fruit as AP Mola Max pledges $600 million investment for port infrastructure expansion, says presidency. Firms say we see an opportunity to deploy larger ships to Nigeria. You can find detail in the paper. Serap slam lawsuit on NNPC over alleged missing $2.04 billion, 164 billion naira oil revenues. And the big story, Nigeria's economy, Tinubu Bill Gates meet, set to unveil digital identification platform to ease tax collection. It will enable more banks account financial inclusion and effective government payment programs. Tinubu identifies technology as a potential weapon against corruption, detailed in the paper. Local government polls, PDP sweep Oyo as APC wins all seats in Gombe. Now we're seeing that APC won all the seats in Gombe, while PDP won all the seats in Oyo State. And then we're seeing APC against what happened in Oyo State. Then PDP can also be against what happened in Gombe. So you can do well to read more detail of that in the paper. Tension as gunmen kill Governor Yedatiwa campaign coordinator Alaba Excel. And collaboration exclusiveness invaluable to ease global challenges, coming from Tinubu. And we have the FCCPC reveals why multi-choice hike their price. We will recall last week, multi-choice said they will be hiking the prices, and here we're seeing the FCCP are revealing why they have actually hiked the price. And we have a cross-section of the pictures toward boosting Nigeria's economy, the various meetings the president had with Bill Gates and other concerning technology and Microsoft, where discussion were created. So you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Voice of Liberty, Prince Harry, Meghan to visit Nigeria in May. Nigeria's galloping inflation impediment to economic growth. Details can be found inside the paper. More Buhari's ministers aids to get Sirika treatment, coming from presidency. Fuel subsidy removal saved Nigeria from going bankrupt. This is a statement from Tinubu at the World Economic Forum. President Bola Tinubu has said that despite the economic difficulties a greater number of Nigerians are facing, the fuel subsidy removal by his government was a necessary action, as it has saved the country from going bankrupt. Stop praying for Tinubu to succeed, a statement from Sam Amadi. Northern governors' U.S. trip exposed their ignorance, a statement from Lamido. Missing $2.04 billion, 164 billion naira oil revenue, Serap sues NNPCL. Fuel scarcity persists in northern states. Black marketers sell at 2,000 naira per liter. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which happens to be the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch newspaper, the big story here says fuel crisis worsen as depot divert PMS to Abuja. NNPC ration supply to depots, other operators to prioritize loading to Abuja. Queue spread in Lagos, Ogun, and other stations raise pump price as black market thrive. You can see a cross-section of the picture stories of a filling station in Lagos State on Sunday. We're talking about the Okadas and even the cars are all queuing up to see if they can get a PMS. Other stories on the front page of the paper: removing fuel subsidy saved Nigeria from bankruptcy. Naira rebounds to 1,275 Naira to a dollar at the parallel market. Adenuga at 71, jack of all trade, master of all. You can find detail on page 7. Rivers explosion, FRSC blames driver as president, governors mourn the victims. More detail found in the paper. Man accused of cement theft jumps into Lagos Lagoon and dies. It's really a very sad story, regardless of what the situation. That shouldn't make you to take your own life. There was a story here at Plateau State as well, where a young man, or young boy rather, was actually owing 5 million naira and decided to take poison, and he's married. And so eventually, even when you kill yourself, remember your loved ones will have to maybe pay the price eventually too. Yeah, regardless of what situation. I know life is hard for a lot of people, but I mean, there's still a reason for us to thrive and see there's hope for us. So nobody should take his life regardless of what the situation is. Still on the Punch newspaper, police launch probe as gunmen kill Ayeda Tiwa campaign coordinator. Data found on page 9. Abiodun orders residents evacuation after Ogun gas explosion. Data found on page 9. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Business Day newspaper, the big story: rice millers roar back to life as cross-border paddy returns. CBN steps into correct market rate distortion. Naira falls at nothing but rebounds in black market. Bank stocks head for biggest plunge in 10 years as investors fear dilution from recapitalization. Debunking economic myths: strong currency doesn't necessarily translate to a strong economy. FMDQ Group appoints Muhammad Abdullahi as chairman. And that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Still on the world of business on National Economy newspaper, federal government seek World Bank extension for the $100 million Women Project. Data found on page 5. No tolerance for discrimination by businesses against Nigerians, coming from the FCCPC. You can find detail on page 6. And we have the big story talking about 42.97% increase in 1 year. Nigerians resort to charcoal, firewood as cooking gas price spike further. And we see a cross-section where, I remember the other time we're seeing some of the carbon dioxide we ingest during cooking with all of this firewood and gas and firewood and charcoal rather. So let's see what will happen if the government can look into making sure the prices are actually being reduced. Also, we have, how can you stop cyber attackers from striking you? I know that we have been a victim, or you know somebody that is a victim, and I think you can take this very seriously by reading it on page 10, how you can stop cyber attackers from striking you. And we have a column here for currency buying, selling, inflation rate, and also commodity prices of Brent, gold, silver, and gas. So you can take a closer look at it and see how this whole thing works, and also how much the currency closed as of the 26th of April 2024. And that's all on National Economy newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story: deadly. Dessa hits 130th club goal in Rangers win. Onochu backs hat-trick, ends 107 days goal drought. Lukman Osime, Olawinyi, Ajibade Oshola also on target. You can find details inside the paper. Joshua tips Usyk to beat Fury. Why I prefer Pulisic to Chukwueze. This is coming from Poli. Ghana survives sports care to maintain lead. And then City pile pressure on Arsenal after win. We have slot to go against club's tradition. You can find details on page 5. Olise interested in Old Trafford switch. Pochettino laments last gaps for decision. And Courtois in Madrid squad for Bayern UCL showdown. And then we have from NPFL, Rangers maintain lead as Bifo claims first Sporting win. And then that's all on the new, that's all the major stories on Punch Sports Extra.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me, and also that helper. We can go on the program this morning. Until we come your way tomorrow, do have a great day ahead.